Inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show. Come to you on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app to your smartphone so you can stream all of our live local shows, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. Can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today. And as the spirits have it, I was in Northern California a couple weeks ago, and just by chance was going to see a band of brothers of mine playing in San Francisco, but I wound up in Sacramento with the Fishberry Melton, and he mentioned that he was doing a farewell concert for the late, great Michael Wilhelm from the Charlatans, and I had done several interviews with Dan Healy, and so I went down there, and all of a sudden, it just, I don't know what it was, but there's this sort of cathartic kind of situation where the name Tim Barnes popped into my head. I've been doing interviews with Greg Douglas and with Terry Haggerty and so many, and guys like Healy, and I've been trying to vet the whole idea of the Bay Area scene of the mid '60s, which comes across as a folk, with a lot of people that really didn't know how to play music, and they taught themselves and got better and better over time and got a fan base. But I get a chance today to talk to one of the serious players. He was up there before Carlos Santana, before when Sly Stone was probably just DJing or playing with Bobby Freeman, and he was around for the Johnny Talbot days, and was really marinating in that scene as a legitimate rock and roll player. Tim Barnes, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thanks, Jake.
It's an honor to have you, Matt. I kind of wanted you to talk about the opportunities that you had to see the early R&B rockers, guys like Fats Domino. Did you have a chance to see them? And then, more importantly, how did they create, volume's the wrong word, how did they create soul without amplification? And I say that because you know better than I do that the PA systems were completely antiquated back in the day. You could barely hear anything. But the soul that was coming out of these guys was incredible. I just wanted you to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, the technology at that time with small clubs, they were using these PAs. It was called a Shure, and everybody had a Shure. But at one time, an opportunity came up at the Oakland Coliseum. A friend of mine was putting on a show with Otis Redding. We had Altec Lansing. It's called Voice of the Theater cabinets, which exactly is what they had at the Fillmore Auditorium. So we got to bring in the PA, and I got to see Otis Redding backed up by the Barkays on our PA. And Jake, it was tremendous. Otis Redding was tremendous. There was only about 50 people in the audience, man, sadly.
No, you know what? That's always yeah, go ahead.
Oh, man. But he just came on like the place was packed. He did Loving You So Long. Pretty Little Thing, Light Your Candle, because Mom, he did that.
Wow.
And then remember the Barkays?
Oh, absolutely.
The Barkays, they did their hits, and then along with Otis Redding. So that was, I don't know, man, that was like one of the greatest shows I ever saw.
What?
And it was nice to be part of it because we got to loan him the PA, which we had, which was state-of-the-art at that time, old tube amplifiers made by Altec Lansing.
This is what's confounding to me because we talked on the phone last week, and you talked about growing up in Concord, and I've talked to Johnny Talbot, even though he is a little bit guarded, Marvin Holmes and the Uptights, but even before, James Brown and the Flames and these cats, there was like a legitimate Chitlin circuit, a black club circuit in Martinez and Hayward and Vallejo, and I'm like, as I was kind of prepping for this interview, I said Barnes was probably going to these black clubs as a teenager to see these cats play if you were growing up in Concord. Tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Well, in Concord, we had the Concord Armory.
Yes.
Okay, the Temptations, Long Came Jones. All those guys played at the Concord Armory, and that's where we got to see them. At that time, that was before I was going to San Francisco to the Fillmore. That was way before the Fillmore.
Exactly.
And all these guys were, a long time. And I got to see the Temptations and all these great R&B bands. And it was really cool. Full horn sections. Albert King played there. Stoneground used to open up for Albert King, man. That was one of our first gigs ever with Albert King. And that was at the Concord Armory.
And so because I was transcribing my interview with John Allaire last night. Do you know John?
No, not exactly.
Well,
from Mill Valley?
Yeah, he was. I mean, this is a guy who Haggerty and Champlin were sneaking into the bowling alley to see this guy when they were kids. But this is what he said to me, and I want you to riff on it. He said, because this is what I'm trying to get at. You were clearly infatuated with black music. It's in our country. There's just so much history and sort of stuff that gets shrouded over. But he said, he said to me, he goes, "You can't create volume without amplification, but you can create soul. You have to communicate with people's hearts and feelings rhythmically through dance music. If you don't have a good song and a good performance in the first place, it doesn't matter. Soul always cuts through, and that's what people want to hear." And everything you're talking about, Otis Redding, Bar-Kays, Albert King, more of a blues side guy, but the point is, you were infatuated with soul music coming from, the black musician, and was that something that you were listening to? Were your parents throwing on records of that stuff early on, or is it just like it just was sort of you were pulled in that direction? And I'm talking before you started to go to the Fillmore, or even Stoneground even was created. I'm just saying, what was the infatuation? Maybe it's obvious to you, but I'd love you to talk to the audience about what drew you into, Jerry Garcia wasn't going to see the Bar-Kays. That's the point. What I'm trying to say is you had a chance. You were marinating in this stuff.
I had a couple of good friends. We were all in school, but they had record collections, and I got turned on to rockabilly. Okay, Scotty Moore.
Sure.
All of them. School, you get a break, everybody turns on their transistor radios, and there they are. There's all the hit records, everything, man. The Supremes, Little Richard, Elvis Presley. I mean, it was all. And then we would go to these. I would go to these picnics in Concord. We had these places where you could go swim, but you could also dance and play records all day long with your girlfriend.
I love this stuff.
It was really a fun atmosphere, man. And I heard bands like the Rockin' Rebels doing Wild Weekend. I heard Jimmy Reed, Muddy Waters, and then I got these friends. They had rockabilly too. They had Johnny Burnett.
Sure.
Johnny Burnett,
Jeez.
who I later discovered, who was a monster rockabilly guy. But at that time, even before the Beatles or anything like that, I was lucky enough. My parents lived in Concord. There was a guy across the street named Jimmy Thibodeau. Okay? And Jimmy, oh man, this guy was Elvis.
Yeah,
Eddie
total
Cochran,
legend, dude. I love
the
it.
Supremes, Buddy Holly, man, this guy was everybody all rolled into one. He played guitar and he played bass also.
Whoa.
And I'm telling you, I was in, that was 1958.
Wow.
59.
Wow.
And I got exposed. And there was Jimmy Thibodeau across the street, living across from my parents, and oh boy, I tell you, Jake, I learned a lot of stuff from him. Everything about performing, singing in tune, doing rock and roll songs to make people dance. I mean, this guy was way ahead of everybody. He was a music teacher too. He was a vocal coach, but he was also good friends with my parents. And then, fortunately, and then the culmination of that was my parents threw this great New Year's party.
Right.
And Jimmy and his band came and played at our New Year's party. Oh, my God. It changed my life, man. It did, Jake.
Timmy,
those guys came in. They're doing Summertime Blues, That'll Be the Day. They're doing Ronettes, all those Jake. God, man, it was unbelievable how good these guys were, man. I mean, these guys, they had the soul, okay? They were white guys, but they're all greased back, and everybody's having a beer, and they're playing rock and roll, man. But they're mixing in with that soul too.
Yes.
So I was getting both.
No,
I was getting everything from these guys, and I was lucky, man.
You were getting the peanut butter and the jelly, and so you were getting it all. But I mean, what did Thibodeau teach you specifically about performing? You said he taught you about stage performance. I find this to be incredibly important because your generation, for whatever reason, seemed, and a lot of it's, there weren't video cameras everywhere. People weren't as self-conscious.
Yeah.
But I mean, you guys were all pretty self-assured on the bandstand. What did Thibodeau teach you about performance?
Okay, I was real lucky, Jake. Once again, we're friends with him. They hired him to teach me guitar, singing, everything, man. He showed me everything, Jake. He'd be standing up in my living room, playing guitar, doing, well, that'll be the day. I mean, he's just rocking out, man. And this cat, I'm telling you, Jake, God, he was good. He was so good, to this day. And anyway, my parents hired him to teach me.
Right.
Okay, and then I had another guy to teach me guitar technology, Johnny Lanosa.
Lanosa.
One of the great jazz guitarists of the 50s and the 60s.
I don't know that name, dude. I do not know that name. Wait, holy cow.
Johnny Lanosa. Johnny Lanosa taught me intonation, tempo. He taught me how to read music. And Johnny was the technical end of it. But Jimmy Thibodeau, he was the performing end of it, the soul.
Wow.
And between those two guys, and I hadn't even got to the Fillmore Auditorium yet. This was years before I even got to right before the Beatles came out, I mean, all of us were the Benchers. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
We were getting exposed to all these guys, man, and we were getting influenced by these guys. We were learning about putting echo and reverb on our guitars. We were learning about that, which was that was a big thing for me. You hear this on the radio, and you think, how's this guy make his guitar sound like that?
Right.
And then Elvis came out with all that echo, and Scott Moore, his guitar player, to this day is still one of the kings for me. For that,
I want to ask you a question. I mean, you're the perfect person to ask about this because this is the bottom line. So you had the guru Thibodeau, who was the soul maestro and was going nuts, and he was just. I mean, the sweat was flying off of him. You couldn't have asked for a better mentor.
Yeah.
And then you had.
You
had the.
I was lucky, Jake. I was.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing about the Beatles. I mean, I love the Beatles. I don't listen to them, but I know that they were. Was it just that? Was the defining thing about the Beatles that they were writing original tunes? I mean, I'm trying to figure out what it was about them. I know Ringo had a very unique style. A lot of them were skiffle players, so to speak, but were you guys, I guess what I'm trying to say is, were you guys, aside from trying to figure out, well, how's he making that sound, or, listening to were you guys writing originals before the Beatles? What was the Beatles' aura? What was the big deal? I'm being very serious.
Okay. Okay, that's a real critical. That's a good question, man. I first saw the Beatles on. Remember the Jack Parr show, late night TV? I'm talking before.
Yeah, before my time,
Carson.
way before my time, way before. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, there was a guy named Jack Parr. Okay, and I was watching TV one night with my mom, 11 o'clock at night. Okay, and Jack Parr comes on. He says, "Okay, I just got back from England," and he says, "I filmed this band that's going to be the biggest band in the world pretty soon." And he says, "Okay, you watch this." So he shows John Lennon, and immediately right off the Jake, their haircuts. I'm going, my God, look at their hair. Oh my God, and I still got greased back Elvis Presley, man, and these guys got these. That's the first thing I noticed, Jake. I said, my God, their hair was this. And then they're playing rock and roll.
Right.
And it was so neat, and it was realistic. This was really happening, okay? Everybody, because when I got to high school, I went to school the next morning, and everybody was talking about the Jack Parr show and what they had seen. And this is long before Ed Sullivan. This is before Ed Sullivan.
Sure.
Years.
Sure.
Okay? I'm talking 19, just right at the end of 59, 1960.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
This is very true. So I remember the dates, and I used to watch Jack Parr all the time because he had, unusual things on there. And then one night when he showed the Beatles, man, what a bombshell. I mean, I couldn't believe it. How could there be a band like this? Because we were all still floating. We hadn't seen the Beatles yet, I mean, we hadn't seen anything like that. It was so new. Their guitars, the haircuts, the suits, and the ties. I'm going, my God, what is this? At first I was real curious, but because I already played guitar at that time, I got sucked right into it, man.
No, but this is really important. So I dig the idea of the the haircuts but what this is the thing. There was a lot of musicality within the Beatles, and up to that point with Elvis, for instance, he was the front man, right? So there wasn't like a lot of conversation going on. It was essentially a lot of hip shaking and you were magnetized by his persona. But I know they weren't I know the Beatles weren't a jazz group, but did you get off on the music? Did you get off on the musicality of the band? The fact that they were playing off of that it was a real band, that it was a real they were really playing off of each other.
First songs I heard, I Want to Hold Your Hand. That was the first one, okay? And then, I swear to God, the next day, Love Me Do. Both.
Right.
They had both going on those. And you know who was playing those? Tom Donahue on KY
yes,
in San Francisco.
The Big Daddy.
Tom, he was on it. Tom was on it too, man. Tom was right on.
And you're telling me 1960? This is 1960?
On Jack Parr, I think a year before Ed Sullivan had them,
This is
but
so important, unbelievable.
When Jack Parr had them, they were already doing real good over there. But you see, in Europe, it's interesting because you had people over there like Gene Pitney,
sure,
and Johnny Holiday, and Eddie Cochran was real big until he got killed over there.
Yeah, right.
But the American stuff was beginning to come in, They were getting influenced by us, and then they were going to influence the Americans, So it was going back and forth. Everybody was inspiring everybody.
Absolutely. And it got even more intoxicating as you became a professional. I know Felix Cavallari, when I interviewed him, I mean, obviously pre-internet, but he was talking about the Rascals and really how the messages of his British brothers going across the Atlantic, I mean, they were really communicating through lyrics, and it was a very special time. Again, a time I didn't live through, being birthed in 1978. But I mean, the fact that let's just get down to it. When I talked to the house piano player at Bob City, which was in North Beach, his name is escaping me now. He said the only 3 white cats that would go down to the Fillmore district to play. Again, this is way before Bill Graham took over. Was Chet Baker, Bill Evans, and Vince Guaraldi. Did Tim Barnes venture in? Did you know Charles Sullivan? Were you hip to the Fillmore district when it was an all-black commerce-run district?
No, not at all. I was still in high school. I believe it was
Concord. Yeah.
A friend of mine named David Brown, drummer.
Yeah.
He told me about the Fillmore, and he
what
told
did
me
he
about
say?
the Grateful Dead.
Yeah. Okay.
He's talking about Grateful Dead, Janis Joplin, Moby Grape, Big Brother and the Holy Company. He's telling me about all these bands that I'd never heard of, because I was out in the East Bay, still listening to, Elvis, I guess. And then me and Dave took me to the Fillmore. And when Dave took me to the Fillmore, that changed my life. There was everybody. I saw the Young Rascals play.
Sure.
Incredible. Boy, were they good. That drummer, Dino, could throw the sticks like 20 feet in the air. Stick would come down, and he'd catch it in the middle of a drum solo, and the band would come back into the song. It was fantastic. I've never seen anybody do that since then. These guys were acrobats.
So this is
People
really.
like, they were acrobats, and that's why I like keyboard players like Keith Emerson.
Sure.
Who came much later. I got to see Keith Emerson. My God, he was like the Jimi Hendrix of the keyboard, man. I never seen anybody do that stuff. And all this stuff, and we were young, and all this stuff was coming in new, man. All we knew was the Shirelles and Elvis, Ed Sullivan, and man, we didn't have nothing, man. And all of a sudden, 1960, 1963, here it comes, man. The British, all of it. We're getting, and me and my buddies, man, we're starving, man, for something. We want to learn something. Everybody's learning how to play guitar and drums and all that stuff. And we're desperate, man. We want to learn something. But there was the people to listen to back then. It was pretty limited,
Well, no, this is really fascinating. So, this is the other thing. Douglas, first of all, that dude is. You guys are just cut from the same cloth, personality-wise.
Yeah.
But this is what he said to me. He goes, this is the greatest. You got to listen to this, because I'll send you the radio interview. I'll send it to your mom. You got to listen. He said, Carlos Santana was blown away by Nino Reggiarello. He was the fastest guitar player I have ever seen. They were contemporaries with Cipollina. There was a whole rock and roll scene in the East Bay that nobody talks about. I was a product of that. I saw Tim Barnes, Nino Reggiarello play, and I realized I was a moron in comparison. It was very good, and it gave me something to aim for. That's where I learned my bones and realized I got to cut these cats. If I'm going to make it, I got to go in and I've got to eviscerate these dudes. Otherwise, I'm not going to make it. So let's make no mistake. Nino, how did you meet Nino? And then you guys were clearly in the East Bay, this part that gets neglected. The orphan of Northern California. You were one of the cats, man. That area. Please talk about that area. How you and Nino got together, and ultimately, why does nobody talk about the scene of the East Bay?
At that time, publicity and all that kind of stuff was pretty low key. Nino was a student of Johnny Lanosa.
Oh, Lanosa again.
We were students of Johnny, and Johnny would put us together on shows where Nino was playing guitar and I was playing drums.
This is what I want. This is where it is. This is exactly what I wanted. I knew it. Barnes was drumming. Unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal.
And so Johnny put us together, and Nino was playing guitar. I was playing drums. And we did that for a long time. Nino would get out and do a solo on acoustic guitar, and he would play Malagueña, which was one of my favorites.
Yeah, I love that too. Yeah,
He'd play the whole thing, man. He'd play the whole thing while the whole band would sit back and wait for him to do it, And then we got to do it on a live radio show one time, and that was so that kind of got everybody into more of a professional, attitude, because we'd already been playing, you know. But then I'd met Greg Douglas. That came much later. He was in a band called Country Weather, and I was in a band called The Immediate Family, and we were sort of competitive our bands were playing at the same gigs.
Right.
But every once in a while, I was living in a ranch by Mount Diablo down there, and Greg would come out and we would jam all night and just play and play and play and play. And he'd bring that great bass player, Dave Carter. He'd bring Dave Carter with him, man.
Jeez.
And we would just play and play and play everything we knew, you know. And so Greg and I got to play a lot like that, actually rehearsing and jamming together. That's how I got to know him. But it was fun, man. Everybody was real good friends.
Did Nino? I mean, did Nino wind up in any, like, once you got into the San Francisco Bay Area and started to gig? Did Nino? Were you guys in a band together before Stoneground formed or anything like that?
Not really. No. Nino was in a band called Queen Lily Soap.
Oh my God! This is so legendary.
And they were trying to get a deal in L.A., and I was in Los Angeles too, but not playing with him. They had a separate deal going. So, but I went to a rehearsal one day when Nino was going to practice with his band. Okay,
right.
And he totally showed out for me, man. He just played incredible. He played a lot like Mike Bloomfield. He took Mike Bloomfield's style, you know, that Chicago Paul Butterfield, and then he extended it and put the sort of Santana and mixed it up with that, and that was Nino. That was Nino's style. And he was good. Oh, God, Les Paul turned up to 10, got about 3 beers in him, you know.
I love, dude. So wait,
he would well.
He's left us now, right? Is he still with us?
No, he passed away a couple of years ago, unfortunately. He was living up in Chico.
How do you? I just want to be clear. And I don't. This is not a Charlie Brown spelling bee. How do you spell his last name? Nino's.
I'm not exactly sure, Jake.
It's okay.
Like it's spelled Ridgerello, like Ridge, R-I-G-E, Ridge, R.
Because I mean, dude, the reason
R-E-L-O, Ridgerello. That was it, you know.
Like, okay, anyway, because, I mean, if you go on Google, I can't find anything about him. And this is the kind of stuff that, like, is incredibly important. This is the other thing that Douglas said. Yeah. He said, one time I was in a jam with Tim Barnes, and he saw me when I was first starting out, and he underestimated my skills. I got into a jam session with him and kicked his ass. I absolutely took him by surprise and took him to the woodshed. I mean, you guys were here's the point. Somehow... Well, like, when was the first time for you outside of Concord, not the pool parties? What was your first gig in Oakland or San Francisco? What did that look like for you?
I was playing with a band called The Immediate Family, and I was playing with a guy named Chris Kovacs, who was the son of the great vocal coach Judy Davis.
Jesus. The Immediate Family. Holy cow. Are you the Immediate Family band?
We were playing in the Bay Area. We were doing Berkeley toga parties. That's the first time I ever saw a toga party. A bunch of people drunk, naked, running around, man. It was funny. Yeah, that's the first time I ever saw that, Jake. Toga parties were a lot more wild than they talk about.
Yeah, I dig, man. So
and then
who was it? So
that was my East Bay thing, yeah.
So you were playing like I mean, like, were you playing coffee houses or were you playing Berkeley Community Theater? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out the venues that the Immediate Family Band was playing in.
Just little private gigs.
Private gigs.
Teen clubs, you know, stuff like that. Because, like, oh, man, we were only like 17, 18 years old. We were pretty young, you know. And so we played these teen club things. And we got pretty far like that. And then I had Chris Kovacs, the keyboard player I was telling you about. Him and I had an opportunity to go to L.A., and play with Lee Oscar, the harmonica player from War.
Dude, I'm a dear. He's a dear friend of mine. I've done several interviews with Lee.
Oh, okay, man.
Yeah.
Lee's great people, man. He really
I love
helped
him,
us out.
dude.
And we played with Lee for about a year down in L.A. and learned a lot of good stuff about blues from him. He taught us some good stuff. And then I came back up to the Bay Area again after a year down there.
Hold on a second. I mean, this is really important because Lee was all tapped into Eric Burden down there. He was homeless for a long time down there, and then Jerry Goldsmith. But I mean, Lee was part of. Were you playing with War or something? He was a relative unknown at that point.
Yeah, they got him in the band, and it was weird because they were playing funk, and he was playing blues harmonica.
Right.
And I'm thinking, how is this going to work musically, But they would figure out these little parts for him, and then it ended up making it was a hit record for War. All those great hits with Lee's harmonica on there. And that was because of Lee, I think.
Yeah.
The licks were simple, but they were right there. He knew what he was doing. He wasn't playing blues harp. He was breaking new ground. He was playing funk harp with War. Stoneground got to play with him a couple times at the Fillmore. It was fun as hell. It was like old home week and all that, and we had a great time playing with those guys. Just to be clear,
when you went to L.A. though, Stoneground had not yet become a band yet.
No. Stoneground didn't happen till I got back from L.A. a year later, and then Tom Donahue he put it to us actually if we wanted to go to England. And back up Sal Valentino from the Bo Brummels, who was looking for a band. And they wanted the Grateful Dead originally, but Jerry couldn't do it, and they couldn't do it. So they got Sal, and then Sal hired me and the guys that I was playing with to back him up on this big Warner Brothers tour, which ended up being the Medicine Ball Caravan.
Okay, I've interviewed Wavy Gravy several times. He talks. I did not. I knew that Stoneground was on that tour, and that was like. Yeah. Okay, so I just want to get the chronology here. Also Kovacs and you. What were you? Is it fair to say that Barnes was trying to get into the studio scene or become a rock star in Hollywood? Why did you go to L.A.? I mean, you weren't playing with War.
No, but Lee Oscar said that there was some gigs down there, and one of them was the Whiskey Go-Go.
Sure.
In fact, after we had rehearsed for about a year, Hugh Masekela's manager, Stewie Levine.
I've interviewed Stu. Stewie, man. I love that cat.
You know him?
Yeah. Very well, yeah.
And he introduced us to Hugh Masekela. We met him.
I've interviewed you. Yeah, I've interviewed them all. Dude, rest in peace. Unbelievable.
So they helped us get into the Whiskey Go-Go and tried to help us get going and down in L.A. But we didn't have the right songs, and we didn't understand really what was going on. The whole thing was way over our heads, Jake.
Absolutely. No. This is really important, though.
The only guy Lee Oscar was the only guy that really knew what was going on down there. The rest of us were just like side guys.
Well, believe me, Lee wound up at Tracy's Donuts and got arrested in San Francisco before he went down. Lee was he was sleeping in Golden Gate Park. I mean, that dude was he was rough at it for a long time before he really, to his credit. We have having a ball here with Tim Barnes here, but also with Kovacs, the immediate family band was going down there, right? That was pre-Stoneground. So I just want to be clear about that.
Yes.
So we have a game on this program called Name That Voice. I want you to take a listen to this voice, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Okay.
We were just coached in paying attention to parts of our mind that we didn't before, and we were kind of left. You're left on your own when you really take a trip, But you just have that presence of mind that you went into it to explore yourself, and whatever's in there is going to be good for you if you're if you understand that it could be quite expensive and, scary. And, the mid to late 60s were just a perfect time for that because everybody was so naive. I don't know that as a blanket experience, LSD would be that great a thing for people. But I think there's probably people who would benefit from it if they could ever find it, and they were in a community of people who really could allow their minds to stay expanded and, slowly come back into their life and integrate that experience into their life and not have it tear their life apart. So those seem to be some of those were always the issues, because some people really did take trips that they didn't come back from.
You want to take a guess at who that is?
Is that Sal?
That is the old man in the sea, Terry Haggerty, from my interview with him from 24.
That's Terry? Oh, yeah, God,
yeah,
dang.
So when,
right.
Okay, so I wanted to get into this with you a little bit. Stoneground obviously was more of a latent band. I mean, Donahue didn't get you guys together till the early 70s, but can you reflect a little bit on, there was a period of time in the Bay Area where there was the League for Internal Freedom. You were able to go and you get Sandoz acid. It was free. It was basically free, and obviously the acid tests took place before it became illegal. But I'm just trying to figure out, from Tim Barnes' point of view, the psychedelic experience for you and how it enhanced your sonic, the sonic nature of the music, and just how it impacted your point of view. My question for Terry in that interview was that I kind of feel like a lot of square cats, because of the naivety, got dosed, and it was a good thing because it's an ego deflator, and I feel like we could use some of that today in some ways. And I just wanted you to talk a little bit about your own experiences with psychedelics.
To be truthful, Jake, I really couldn't play guitar until after I took some blue acid, man.
Talk about it.
I swear to God, I'm telling you the truth, man. I was sort of fumbling around surf guitar, and I sort of understood certain things, man, okay? But when I'm talking about one night we partied, and then that night, it was like some giant door opening in my mind.
Yes.
I wasn't afraid. I wasn't scared, but I knew something monumentous was happening in my brain, man. And after that, I pick up my guitar, and it felt different. Okay, all of a sudden, me and my guitar were not two; we were one.
Wow!
I was just about ready to sleep with that thing, man. I tell you, man, it changed my life so radical. Like, if I hadn't have done that, truthfully, I think I'd be dead in Vietnam, or I'd be in prison, man. I would have been in a lot of trouble, Jake. I think so. Did it
give you? This is the wrong word, but obviously somehow on a molecular level, it fused the apparatus with you. But did it give you some kind of fearlessness or some sort of door of perception that allowed you to actually tap into something that maybe you didn't realize you had?
Absolutely, man. It's the most incredible thing, really, that ever happened to me, man. You feel this before you do it. Happening to them, so I just sort of went along with it, and I was really glad I did, because I understood so much after I did that. About life, too, man, more than music. About relationships with people and everything like that. It's like all of a sudden a part of your brain opens up that you didn't even know was there,
Oh, I'm curious about, some people would say that, like, an experience that you had, like, as good as it was, once is enough. But a lot of people obviously did it a lot. And, some of them are okay, some of them...
True.
And I'm just wondering about... Because it was that first maiden voyage for you was so special and so enlightening. and you were young. I mean, I assume you guys probably did it a lot. I mean, looking back on it, do you think once would have been enough, or were there other transcendent moments on LSD?
Well, I probably did it myself a total of probably 5 times.
Oh, good.
Okay?
Very little,
but
yeah.
Other people, my friends, they were taking it 3 times a week. You know, they'd take it all the time. They go to work. You know, I don't know how they did that.
Dude, that's
I don't know how they did it,
man.
man.
They got through the day,
I
man.
couldn't do it. So after a couple times, I knew that I'd gotten some good out of it, man, because totally positive things were happening. Got the band, hooked up with Tom Donahue. All of a sudden, we're going to Europe, you know, and all this stuff happened inside of less than a year. You know, it was pretty quick. And then when Tom wanted us to go to Europe that first time, me and Sal and John Blakely, a great guitar player, we were trying to get songs, as many as we could get. And we didn't care where we got them. We tried to get as many songs because we knew as soon as we got it on the road that we were going to have to play. Right. And this band was going to happen because Tom had been already telling everybody about it, you know. So we had a little bit to live up to, but everybody was willing to work, and everybody was, you know, pretty psychedelic, and we were all drinking a lot then, but we were still able to get things done, you know, and that was okay. And Tom really appreciated that. And so Tom got us a lot of gigs. He got us hooked up with Joe Smith from Warner Brothers and all those guys. And he just, like, the whole thing was just about being handed to us, man. It was. It was like a dream come true. I couldn't believe it was happening, but it really was. You know, they were handing us a record contract, and we hadn't even made a demo for them yet. All we had done is played a couple of shows back east, Ohio, New York, and that was it. And then as soon as we got to England, oh boy, things got serious then, you know. It was great. It's like a dream, you know. And I wanted it to happen because at that time I was afraid because I had a warrant for my arrest for the FBI.
Oh,
and
man.
They were ready to pick me up, man. I tell you.
Jeez.
And so somehow I was able to get out of the country. I got a passport thanks to President Nixon. Let me give Nixon a plug there, Jake. Okay? Nixon is part of this too. Yes, Nixon saved my life, Jake. They gave me a passport and a plane ticket out of the country, right in the middle of Vietnam. So,
and with an arrest warrant, I mean thank God before the internet. I mean, you kind of buzzed. Hold on for a second. This is so the immediate family band essentially was late 60s, right? 67, 68, 69, is that right?
No, early, right, sort of right in the middle, okay?
In the middle.
Stoneground happened in 69.
Okay. And you went to England
69.
You went to England in 70? In 70?
No, actually it was August of 69 when we went.
Okay, because Medicine Ball Caravan was a few years after that, right? I mean, that was like 73 or something, I thought. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, that was the movie came out, and they had an album, too, which I'm both on. It's really hard to find those now. But all that came out. It took 3 years for that album and that movie to come out.
Right. Okay.
All that happened in 1969.
Got it.
And by the time... rest, and we were on the road. We were on tour by then.
You
all over the place, man.
How did you pick up? I guess it's like we let in with a live from the Winterland from '74 Stoneground. It's Sammy Piazza, Fred Webb, Terry Davis, Tim Barnes, and then these Annie Sampson and Joe Baker. And I'm just wondering about. When Donahue got a hold of you guys and was like, hey, listen, you're going to do this, you better get your shit together. Did you have Already female singers in the band. What was that was unique. I mean, Sly Stone had a mixed gender band, obviously, but when did why did you guys decide? What was the catalyst to incorporate the soul singers, the female singers?
When the band first started out, we had 4 vocal female singers: Annie Sampson, Deirdre Laporte, Lynn Hughes, and I can't remember her name.
Yeah.
We had 4 gals, but then when we came back and went through a bunch of crazy stuff right at the end of 1972, then we incorporated Sal, left the band, and then we got Annie Sampson and Joe Baker. That's when they came in, about 1974. That's when that happened.
How did you guys? So I mean, you obviously were well trained. I mean, we obviously vetted and talked about your early mentors, but like, you're telling me that you didn't have any original tunes with the band. I mean, like, how did you get that stuff together with the singers? Because, I mean, you can rehearse that stuff to death, but you have to have some talent, otherwise it's going to be a mess. I mean, how did you pull that all together?
Well, Sal had a couple original tunes, and they were pretty easy to learn. But and then I had a song that was given to me, that one, "Total Destruction to Your Mind." That wasn't a hit or anything like that, but it was given to me to do that song. And then the rest of it was cover material from other people that we knew. But we're trying to mix it up. We're trying to do original stuff with the cover stuff. And if we would have had more time, probably, to work out more original material, things probably would have been better for us. Plus, our studio knowledge wasn't that great at that time, I confess, including me. I didn't know a lot of stuff, man, back then. I didn't know about click tracks and overdubbing and all this EQ and all this other stuff that I learned about much later, you know. But all that stuff, I wish I would have known then, because it would have been, it would have helped us.
It would have, but it would have. Actually, it was a blessing in disguise too. To me, the technology now has superseded the humanity in music, and that's one reason there's a homogenization of sound. If you want to talk about Reggiarello, Carlos, Cipollina, Haggerty, everybody had their own sound. Everybody had their own individual sound, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that, you know what, you guys didn't really know what you were doing, and it actually worked. You got better and better at what you know. I mean, it's true. Now, this is something that I just saw. The original Stoneground trio: Barnes on guitar and vocals, Craig Randall on bass and vocals, Mike Mao drums on vocals. Mike on drums. So that was a trio in '68. So were you living in San Francisco at that time? I mean, how did that? That's the original trio.
No, we were in the East Bay.
Wow.
And the immediate family had broken up. Okay.
Right.
So I moved back into town, and we started playing with Craig Randall and Mike, and then all of a sudden we weren't playing any gigs. And then Mike says, "Well, let's get a name for the band, and then we can start playing gigs." So Mike, Mao, and me we thought up, like, well, okay, Stoneground? What is that? What is that, smashed bread? I'd never even heard that word before, man. I swear to God, I'd never even heard it, you know. And then we came up with that, and right at that time, Craig and me were in contact with Tom Donahue, and Tom Donahue was looking for something to put together for Sal.
Got it.
And that's how that happened.
So it went from a trio to a larger band at that point. It went from like 3 cats to maybe, I mean, how big a band went to Europe? It was like an 8-piece band, 9-piece?
We had, there was guitar, rhythm guitar, bass, and drums, 4 chick singers, and Sal.
Jesus.
All that.
Wow. No,
it was,
this is ridiculous. When you were these are, I'm just going to riff off these clubs in Oakland because I know Curtis Mayfield and Don Barksdale was a great basketball player, had some clubs, the Continental, the Showcase, and the Sportsman. Were you guys playing any of those clubs? Like, what clubs were you playing in Oakland? But I mean, this is pre-Donahue Stoneground, when you actually put the name of your band together. What clubs were you playing in Oakland?
Well, at that time, there was a coffee shop on Telegraph Avenue, and I think we played there one time. But while we were a trio in the East Bay, we didn't have any gigs in the Bay Area in like Oakland or anything like that as of yet. That all came, later and stuff.
Were you
so
still?
We
were
were
you
still in the East Bay at that time.
Oh, I totally dig it. No, I mean, but were you? I mean, because I'm just looking at Red Fox, Lou Rawls, Major Lance, Were you still? I mean, you talked about seeing Otis Redding, but were you still marinating in the black clubs in Oakland? You'd go see a lot of live music over there.
No, unfortunately, I didn't have a car, and
I mean,
it's weird.
Yeah.
My mom and dad never listened to any of that stuff on the radio.
Sure.
They never listened to rock and roll, and I didn't. The only way I got exposed to rock and roll was hanging out with buddies, and their girlfriend's house, and having the girlfriend put on all these cool records. That's kind of how through friends and stuff I got exposed to it. But I didn't get exposed to that, to the black thing, Muddy Waters, till, I don't know, much later, man, unfortunately.
Do you?
In fact, thing.
Go ahead.
The album that turned me on to the whole black blues concept, I kid you not, was Eric Clapton and John Mayall and the Blues Breakers.
Really?
That was the one. That one.
Wow.
And I still, to this day, that album right there, anybody who played guitar, that's like a 2-year college course in lead guitar, man, and playing. It's just so, I learned so much from that album, man. Lead, rhythm, all this stuff, all the stuff that I needed to learn, And,
for people that, this is so important for people that might hear this interview long after me and you have left this planet. When you talk about Mayall, who I've interviewed, he was an irascible motherfucker, but he was a good guy. And Clapton, you're talking about picking up on the essence of black music through two white cats, and that record. I want you. Can you talk specifically? A lot that would go over a lot of people's heads today. Well, is there? Can you? I mean, was it the way the song was formed, the way it was structured, or the soul? What was it that you were able to pick up on that essence from?
Well, no, my mom exposed me to all kind of music when we were young. We were listening to everything. Oh man, it's just a barrage of everything, and all this stuff was just like, I don't know, it's like added knowledge to kind of I already knew.
Right.
But I wasn't fully aware of the black blues thing until I heard that Eric Clapton, John Mayall thing. And then I learned about Muddy Waters, B.B. King, Albert King, Jimmy Reed, then all those guys. Then my tongue was hanging out for that. Buddy Guy. I couldn't get enough. I started buying all these black records, listen to them, and my mom and dad, they're going, what is this, what happened to the Beatles here, and all that, and I had grown out of Beatles, but we were getting exposed to this new style of guitar, and I already knew about Jeff Beck, all these guys. But when I heard Eric Clapton, man, I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't. The tone, the licks that he was playing, and all the licks he was playing was all black.
Yeah.
Every bit of it.
Yeah.
But he was a white guy, and he was putting a little extra punch to it. Okay, a little bit extra punch, which they had distortion, feedback.
Right.
All that stuff long before. See, Jeff Beck and Eric Clapton, they're trying to copy that. So they did electronically. Box came out, Box Olamp, that came out with these fuzz tones. And you had all these new electronic pedals coming out, okay, to get that sound.
This is so awesome to hear you. I mean, you were literally like living. You did a very good job just now explaining that. And I know it's been vetted, but I mean, for someone like you to actually who have lived through it, it's impressive because that stuff is not easy to express in words. How did Pete Sears? How did you connect with Pete Sears?
Oh, Pete Sears. Okay, Pete was
legendary cat, a dear friend.
Player.
I love that cat, man. Fucking great cat, man.
Oh, I love that guy.
Yeah.
Me and Pete, hey man, you know what me and Pete used to do? Pete and I used to throw knives together. Yes. Pete showed me how to throw a knife, man. And then I showed him how to shoot bow and arrows. So we all went out and got bow and arrows, man, and start shooting bow and arrows.
Dude, I love this. That just made my day. That was nothing better. That was the greatest thing I've heard all week. Wait, so you were like throwing knives at like a, it would be like the same distance of a bow and arrow. You were just throwing it at like a piece of wood and trying to hit the target.
Well, Pete he had bought a throwing knife, you know, and I sort of already had an idea how to do it. So we get about 10 or 15 feet away from an old wooden building and just start throwing it. And pretty soon we got pretty good. We could really wang that thing, you know.
So hold on, but I mean, like, no, I just really want to wait. So was there like, was the goal to hit a bullseye of some sort with the knife, or was it just the idea of throwing a knife?
Just to make the knife stick. To make it stick, because a throwing knife will only stick in one end.
Barnes, this is the most important thing I've ever heard of. This is the best part of the interview right here.
Yeah, Pete, we kind of showed each other how to do this stuff, and he was already really into it. And then later on, I think he got into antique guns and all kinds of stuff like that. But I met Pete through Tom Donahue.
Right.
We needed a bass player, and Tom had a band with that guy from Blue Cheer. They had a band. Anyway, it wasn't working out. And Pete came into us our band because we had a deal going with Warner Brothers,
right?
Which Pete was hot for. And Pete had already been playing with Rod Stewart. And Pete is one of the first people to ever play Good Old Country Comforts in my books. I heard that song long before Elton John did it.
Are you kidding me?
Pete Sears playing on it. No. Pete was playing with Rod Stewart on, what's that, Gasoline Alley.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Listen to Gasoline Alley, man. And Good Old Country Comforts is on there, I think 2 or 3 years before Elton John did it. And Elton John really didn't change the arrangement that much. And Pete never got any acknowledgement for that. And that really kind of hurt him a little bit.
No, I want to be clear. Was he a composer of that tune, or then Rod Stewart put it on the album, or I mean, why did he not get?
Okay, that part right there, I'm not sure. I'm not sure where Pete and Rod Stewart got that song.
Sure.
I don't know.
Well,
I can't remember. That was so long ago. But I heard, it's funny because I'd heard that song long before Elton John, and then when Elton John came out with it, it was a giant hit. You know, it was huge. And then when Pete and Rod Stewart were doing it, it was just like a filler tune on Gasoline Alley.
You know, because this is a legendary story from Mario Cipollina, who I interviewed several times. He said the year before he had a band called Soundhole, which I'm sure you remember. But he said the year before I was in a band called Stoneground. Sal Valentino was the leader of the band. Tim Barnes was on guitar. It was a 10-piece band. It was huge, and it was managed by Tom Donahue. Big Daddy Tom started with KMPX and then went to KSAN. He was the father of underground radio. I went to Mount Tamalpais High with both of Tom's sons. I was up at the Donahue house every day, so I knew Tom as a friend of his kids, and he knew he was a player. So when the story is that Mario is in high school at Mount Tam, Pete Sears goes off to England to record Gasoline Alley, and a limo picks up Mario to go to play with Stone. You guys were going on tour, and Mario became the bass player there to fill in for Pete.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Pete, actually, it's like Pete had gone to do the Gas 99, and then we were going down to the Hollywood Bowl to play with the association.
Exactly.
And we were going down there to play on. So that's the gig that he's talking about. Yeah, the limos came and picked us all up. The neighborhood was at a big uproar about it, man. All these limos pull up in front of our house, you know. And it was kind of it was a fun thing, you know. And yeah, Mario didn't last very long though, unfortunately. And he ended up with Huey Lewis.
Of course. Well, I love Mario dearly, and you know Soundhole. That was a terrible situation with those brothers. One of the brothers got killed. I forget the whole. Yeah, I'm looking here because Sears was playing with Mickey Waller in the Jeff Beck band, and then that's how I'm just trying to figure out what band. Were you part of the Mill Valley gang at all? I mean, did you have any? Were you close with Cipollina, or, you know, and even Haggerty? Could you just riff on a couple of stories?
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, through Mario and John and playing gigs, John and Mario's mother would she'd serve these big Italian dinners.
I love it.
Up in Mill Valley.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Up at her house,
and
yeah. I've been there. Yeah.
Have you been there?
Yeah, I have been there. It's unreal house. Unreal house. Unreal.
That's how I met them, through going up to have dinner with them and playing.
Oh, that is so.
We'd all bring our guitars, and you know, everybody's smoking and drinking and having a good old time. That's how I met those guys. It's kind of through John's father too. John Cipollina's father.
Yeah, Gino. Yeah, Gino. Well, because
Gino loved to. They love to have people up and have dinner and throw these big parties.
Gino was also somebody who was he built houses, but he was also part of the real estate. He actually got all the hippies their first houses. He got Yorma their house, Garcia, all those cats. Nobody would give them a mortgage except for Gino, which is just great. I mean, the whole thing is a really special. You know, and we just cooked for 64 minutes here, Tim, and we were all over the place, but I think for set one, I think we did a heck of a job, and I just wanted to, let's do set two down the road, but I'll get you a copy of
Sounds good.
I'll send this over. I'll get you a copy of this, and thanks for being part of the program, brother.
Do you need my home address, Jake? You want my home address?
Yeah. Let me call you. Let's not do it over the radio. I'll call you on my cell phone, and we'll get. But I mean, the question is this: do you? Yeah, I'll call you right after this. All right.
Okay.
All right. Love you, man. Great to hang with you, bro. I hope you had a good time.
Bro.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Jake.
Peace.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Bye-bye.
I'll be right here.
Okay. Later. Well, just another piece of the puzzle with just searching through the East Bay and the Bay Area. Tim Barnes, thanks for being part of the program. This is the Jake Feinberg Show. Big weekend ahead. Happy Halloween. Until then, peace.
Come through for me. Don't tell me what you see. You better come through for me. There's too many people try to tell me where I'm at, and there's too little time for this at all. Just tell me that you love me, and if that's just the case, I'll give you all I can before I fall. Just the case, I'll give you all I can before I fall.